Welcome back. Very exciting as always. I had that on test in our bedroom last night just to check it all worked perfectly. It sent it to sleep and we went to sleep and it all faded down beautifully. Switched it back to a normal operation this morning. All came up and set itself to the right time, which is good. I haven't yet tried the alarm function, but I'll do that next week. Now, in the post this morning, the Aperture arrived. The 3D printed Aperture, as you can see, works very nicely. There you go. So that is going to be going over the front of that. And because I had to shove everything over to the right to make room for this extra little recess for the storage knob, it's all getting a bit close to the right hand side, so that's going to sit over there. And I was thinking, how am I going to fix this down? There's no holes, these all move round with the blades, so there's no, can't screw through any of those. I was thinking, how on earth can I do it? Don't want it to have it this way round. I think it would be better this way, just to make it more sort of secure. So what I did, I designed something. I designed a piece of plastic so I could glue this onto that, make that brass or something, which would look nice. But when I actually mounted it, well, rested it in place, I hadn't left room for this little lever here, and it was hanging over the edge, and it just, I mean, look, it just doesn't look right. It looks so wrong. It needs something visually to balance it up here. Just tried it back to front, all sorts of other ways around. It just did not do it. I mean, I'm supposed I could anyway. So that's the stage we're at the moment. I suppose I could do it like, no, that's the thing. It's just too near this edge. Just won't look right. So, and the thing at the top is for this sign, which I'm very pleased with. Erin came up with the name, the Canine Feculence Recoupment device, and that's going to go over there. So with this idea, I was going to have that mounted on top with a slight gap around the edge, which would look nice, and this would look lovely if it could be properly surrounded with wood, but it can't be, so no good. I'm going to keep the sign though, because that did look nice on my original designs. So that can go there, that can go there. So my latest thought is to make up some little brass. I've got these 4 screw holes anyway that are supporting this. I can't use that one because that's where the knob goes, but I can make up 4 little brass brackets to go under the screws and sort of Z shape to just go over the edge of this, made of some nice brass strip. I'll give that a go, and the more I look at this, actually, it does look rather nice with that side at the front. It looks a bit plain. That looks interesting. Perhaps we will do that. That solves that as well, because it makes this knob easier to move because it's much nearer this side. Just I made the first bend, and then realised because of the height of the second bend, the distance, there's no way it would fit. Damn it, Janet. So that's plan B out of the window. Plan C. I've just found, I was rooting about something else, 3 of these hexagonal M4 threaded things that I tried to do something with that obviously went wrong, because I've got 3 of them that aren't finished, which is brilliant. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an M4 dome knot and a large disc washer on the top of each one, tap the bottom to M4 or whatever, and then have 3 of them that sit right up, hold it in place with their hexagonal sides, and then have them cut down to the right height, 12mm, so that the washer just sits on top. Perfect, and that will look lovely and not interfere with anything else, and I can just put these screws back anywhere as they were. Phew! Well, hopefully, phew. Which is it going to be? And this is working very nicely so far. I'm very pleased. This is the way forward. Should I have one of these beautiful little things which I found all sorts of other uses for, that are meant to be for the picture frames to go on the back to hold them shut, which looks lovely, or just a plain large washer? I think I'm erring on the side of that, because 3 of those all pointing in will look lovely. Fantastic. Oh, and the other thing is that doing it this way means I also need another M4 washer, brass washer. How fantastic. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 parts, 5 parts, 15 extra parts just to mount this one. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, could you just put a load of glue around there and squished it on? How is this even possible? Religiously marked it all out with the angles and the 3mm extra for the centres of these. Rest on those two okay, and then this one's floating off up here. You couldn't make it up. I mean, how? How is that possible? I marked it. Oh. But luckily I have another bit of this left over, which is already tapped to M4 luckily, and that larger hex rod. It's just annoying, isn't it? It's absolutely ridiculous. I wanted that to be close because that's the side the engraving's on. So I'll either keep that small and make these. It just does your head in. It's ridiculous. But it will look lovely, hopefully. Oh, now look at this. I'm so pleased. That looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm so pleased that I went with that, because I did design a rectangular one to start with. Just looked a bit clunky, especially over a round thing. Designing labels can be really enjoyable, but sometimes you just cannot find the one to the right sort of shape. But this does look lovely. And then these three, fantastic, and they hold it perfectly. You can remove them if something goes wrong with this and you needed to replace it. It can't twist, it's really rigid, it's held in place. And it's very dark because I've decided to film this underneath my shelf above the laser cutter. But look, and this facing front means that the little the slider is higher away, it's further away from the base. That is just lovely, and that does look really nice. Right, very pleased with that. So back to this bit. How can we complicate this? I hear you cry. Well, once I'd screwed the front on, this wouldn't open and close. In fact, I'll just show you, because I don't think I'd demonstrate how this works. That's better. A tripod. Okay, so this works by pulling out this knob at this end, and then gravity, or in this case my hand, will pull this down, and then you can see once this reaches the... Can you see? Hang on. There we are. That's how it works. You can see it's plopped into the next slot, or the next hole rather. And then I can pull it out again, and again gravity will drop it down, hit the... There we are. So Erin can either get to her freezer bags, or... Oh, look at that. Get to her cooking roll, tin foil. So that's really good, I'm really pleased. And then of course, pulling this out, oh, pushing it up, that means it just comes right back up to the top and locks in place. Both sides, it's supported, and it's got felt all around it to stop it rattling and things. It means that you don't need a catch at the bottom, which is amazing, because originally I thought, well, something and then this and then, but you don't. Perhaps a little handle so you can lower it, but then gravity is going to pull this down at the same rate both sides, I suppose. Anyway, enough of that. What I found was, once I'd screwed the front on, it was too tight against this. So, with the wonderful laser cutter, I cut some strips of felt. I was trying to think, could use thin pieces of wood or whatever. Why not use felt? Because then you get a lovely little detail, a little red line around it, just like this, and that will look lovely. So I've done that, and now, because I want to overcomplicate it further, I'm just thinking about some sort of lever or control that can pop the bottom bag through. I've designed this, if you watched previous videos, so that it's possible to put your fingers through the aperture, grip the bottom bag and pull it out. But it might be necessary to stick with that. I'm going to have a think about whether I can very quickly come up, because this is taking an inordinate amount of time now, but it's very enjoyable, finding some way of making something that just flicks one forward. It can't be that difficult. Famous last words, I'm sure I've said that before. It can't be too difficult. Right, I will give it some thought. Start waking up at 6 o'clock on a Sunday. That's at 6 o'clock AM, I hasten to add. How frustrating, other than the fact it gave me a lot of time to work out a mechanism to push the bottom poo bag out. I came up with sort of 5 or 6 different systems, and I settled on this one, and I've just finished building it. What I did, using a 13mm drill bit, I drilled lots of holes in the base, so that's 13mm, and then, apologies for the wonkiness of it, but I had to do a little bit of adjustment, shall we say, and then a 4.5mm hole slot, row of holes that goes right the way through. So you've got the slot that goes right the way through, and a little rebate at the back, and then to finish it all off, the pièce de résistance, a 10mm hole drilled right through, lining the slots up. Now that means in the hill goes a lovely little brass thing with some tapped holes on, in fact 2 tapped holes. This one has a knob that comes in from underneath and screws up into it, and you see there this is going. And at the back, this one has an M4 threaded rod with the top bit smoothed off. So that slides backwards and forwards. Oh, and there's also a spring. So you've got a spring, luckily one I'd prepared earlier that just fitted. That's going to go in the hole and push this always to the back. So let's have a look at the knob. Here's the knob, just stained it so it's drying. But you get the idea, that sits on the outside. That bit there is 13mm, that spigot, so that's going to fit in the hole. I'm going to cut out like a washer made of felt. Again, it'll look nice and will also provide some padding. Well, it's dry, and there's the graphite powder. Apparently you can, well, I bought it because it's to lubricate locking mechanisms, because you're not meant to use oil in them, I assume, because oil attracts dirt. So I've sprayed a little bit of there in now, and it moves beautifully. There's also the red felt washer there, so now you can see what it actually is going to do. There's the spring, which I'll have to hold in manually. So, hang on a minute, I'll hold the spring in there, and it just, the little prong just comes forward, pops the bottom roll out. How lovely. And oops, there goes the spring. It looks lovely, doesn't it? It's a delight. Fabulous. Very pleased with that. So thanks very much for watching. As always, if you have enjoyed this, please click subscribe and things. I'm currently looking for the spring, which I've just trodden on. There we are, on my carpet of invisibility. Hope to see you next time. Thanks again.